Guys, welcome back. Reading from Coming Back. Reading Chapter 7, entitled Almost Reincarnation. And we'll take it away here. So, there's a quote at the beginning from Srimad Bhagavatam, which is one of the Vedas. The living entity who has received his present body because of his past fruitive activity may end the results of his actions in this life. But this does not mean that he is liberated from bondage to material bodies. The living entity receives one type of body, and by performing actions with that body, he creates another. Thus he transmigrates from one body to another, through repeated birth and death, because of his gross ignorance. Sensationalistic U.S. weekly tabloids are rife with unscientific notions about reincarnation, presenting startling new evidence practically every week. This was written back in the time when that was more of like a mainstream media conversation. Mm-hmm. And more paperback books claiming to tell the, quote, real truth, end quote, about past lives glut the market. Okay. But who to believe, and what to believe? Can the National Enquirer and other similar publications really be accepted as authorities on the science of reincarnation? I'd say no. Oh, God. Out-of-body experiences are one tangential aspect of reincarnation that has been widely publicized. While many of these out-of-body reports may well be true, they do not provide us with any really new information. Reports of such occurrences may help to convince readers that there is indeed another reality beyond the body, consciousness, or the soul. But this is not new information, for this knowledge has been available for years. The Vedas explain that consciousness is a symptom of the soul, and therefore has a separate existence from the body. From even a cursory study of the more than 5,000-year-old Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures, the existence of the soul as distinct from the body becomes obvious. It is not surprising to a student of Vedic science to hear that the soul, carried by the subtle body, consisting of mind, intelligence, and false ego, may temporarily go beyond its material tabernacle during dreams or near-death experiences. What a word, tabernacle.
Dude, Prabhupada's writing, you think like, oh, he's just some old Indian man, like, the way he uses the English language, he's master. He's just a master.
That's. I don't think I've seen that word in writing in a long time. Yeah. Unless you're reading like French something, they use that word more. But that they're referring to a church genius, ornament. Is what they're referring to in French. Tabernacle.
Just the way he phrases, like, even in the beginning, how he poses that question: can the National Enquirer and other, like, just his sense of humor is great.
Tabernacle. You know they use church items as swear words in French.
Really?
Yeah, like they'll say like, you know, like what we say, like shit, and like do they have the F word? Yeah, they just say the English for that. I think for the at least I should say Canadian French, where I experienced some of. I don't know for sure that French people do.
Oh, okay.
But like, you know, merde is like shit in French.
Yeah.
And so they would like, fuck the merde. It's, you know, like, I'm out. But they would say like tabernacle and like other things. And I don't know for sure how you would exactly put that in a sentence, but they basically would use it the way we use like those words. Mm-hmm. But they'll like throw in, and it's like even more offensive in their mind because it's like supposed to be the spiritual holy item. Oh my God. And they're like, you know, tabernacle. Like, oh. I'm probably not putting the right emphasis on that, but I just thought it was like, oh, that's interesting. I'm like, and then that's why like married and stuff is not considered as offensive because they got like worse ones. Yeah, that's pretty commonplace.
Shit, that's PG-13.
Yeah, you're good. Don't worry about it.
That's funny.
All right, so tabernacle. I really went to town on that word. All right,
I mean, it's not a very commonly used word.
It's not. It jumped out at me. False ego, and see, this is how lost I am. This is where my mind went when I read that word. Not what he's talking about, but the French swear words. All right, talking about being engulfed in the material tabernacle. False ego means accepting the body as oneself. The sense of, quote, I am, unquote, is ego. But when the soul becomes contaminated or conditioned by matter, he identifies with the body and thinks that he is a product of material nature. When the sense of self is applied to reality, or the soul, that is real ego. That makes sense. That's the difference between false ego is identifying with the body and your mind, I guess.
And the real ego is identifying you as the spirit
soul.
Within.
Yeah. Reincarnation, the real out-of-body experience. Out-of-body experiences, OBEs for short, are really nothing new. Everyone has had them, for dreams are nothing less than an out-of-body experience. During sleep, we enter the dream state, when our subtle body leaves the gross form and experiences a different reality on the subtle plane. The subtle body is the vehicle which carries the soul out of the body and into another, new body, at the time of death. A fairly common type of OBE has been documented in cases of near death, when subjects describe how they seem to hover over their own bodies at the scene of an accident or over the operating table, observing their own bodies without feeling physical pain or discomfort, although many had been declared clinically dead. They did that in Marvel with Doctor Strange. I don't know if you watched Doctor.
Yeah, Doctor Strange is one of my favorite of the new Marvel movies. I really like that movie. I liked it because it was very influenced by like Vedic.
This kind of, for sure.
It was really cool.
Even while the gross body is inactive, the subtle body is active. As already noted, the subtle body sometimes carries us into dreams while our gross body lies sleeping in bed. A similar phenomenon occurs when we go on mental journeys during the day, as in daydreams. Sometimes you wake up feeling like you didn't get enough rest because you'd be doing some crazy stuff in your dreams.
Yeah, I know, right?
In special circumstances, during a close brush with death, people enter a state researchers have termed the near-death experience, or NDE for short. In some cases, the terms NDE and OBE can be used interchangeably. During an NDE, near-death experience, the subtle body often hovers above the corporeal form. Since the soul is the elemental principle of life, the very essence of life itself, it can observe the body it belongs to. It can see, hear, and smell, just as if it possessed all the physical faculties of the body. When the subtle body hovers above the gross form during a near-death experience, the body may be compared to a car with the engine left running. The driver of the vehicle has stepped out for a moment, but if he does not return, the car runs out of fuel and the engine ceases to run.
That's very well.
That's a good analogy.
Right there. Yeah.
Similarly, if the soul does not return and reintegrate itself with the body during a near-death experience,
yeah.
NDE. I feel like because of all the different ones, people get confused, so I'm trying to actually say it. Near-death experience, the person dies, and the subtle body carries the soul to another physical body to begin a new life. This fact is a fundamental principle expounded throughout the Vedic literature. One of the most famous and oft-quoted verses of the Bhagavad Gita states, as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body, from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. I do hear that a lot.
Yeah, BG 213, baby. That's probably, one of the more famous verses quoted.
During our lifetime, we are unknowingly creating the subtle form of our next physical body, just as a caterpillar transports itself by taking hold of a second leaf before giving up the first. The living entity begins to prepare its new body before giving up the present one. At the moment of actual death, the soul transmigrates to a new body, rendering the body of its former habitation lifeless. The soul does not need the body for its existence, but without the presence of the soul, the body is nothing more than a corpse. This transferal of the soul from one body to another is what we call reincarnation. Although hundreds of recorded near-death experiences seem to present ample evidence that the mind and soul can exist while separate from the body, near-death experiences do not give us any definite information about the soul's final destination at death. Therefore, while literature on near-death experiences can provide us with a basis for accepting reincarnation, it still leaves readers sadly uninformed about the true nature of reincarnation and the destiny of the soul after the near-death experience, or the death experience, the real death experience.
That was really, I wanted to say something about something you were reading back here, but then I just kept listening to you and I totally forgot.
The caterpillar, maybe? Grabbing the new leaf? Or the Bhagavad Gita? Driver?
Oh, no, I was going to say, so I wonder, I've thought about this a lot, like, because, at work, not all the time, but often you end up seeing people die or around them just before they die, and it's something I often think about, like, the actual process of death itself. From here, it's saying that, like he's talking about the dream, right? You're dreaming, and then as you're dreaming, your subtle body is, off doing whatever while you're dreaming.
Yeah.
And many times when people die, they're often not wide awake and then just like they often are conscious and then they slip into unconsciousness before then slipping into death.
Yeah.
Which then would, according to this, imply that as the time of death approaches, you go into shock, or you go into whatever. There's the physiological aspects of your body as you're dying. It goes through crazy changes, spike in blood pressure, your heart starts pounding, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's the way that your body's physically trying to like, no, I want to hang on. But inevitably, you slip into unconsciousness. So I wonder if it's, if that is the case and you're allowed to die in at least, let's just assume, a peaceful way.
Yeah.
To me, it would seem that you go unconscious. Maybe you're seeing, it may feel as if like you're in a dreamlike state.
Yeah.
And then you end up waking up.
I mean, some people die in their sleep.
Getting spit out of the mother's womb, and now you're like, oh my God, what a horrible dream that I just had. But now here you are in the next life. Like, I wonder, that's one thing I've always like wanted to know is how that part works. Is there... Does it happen instantaneously that you're transferring from one body to another?
I don't think so,
or do
because in the
you
story of
sit there
Ajamil,
in
you have
limbo?
them coming to get you, right? Like the story of Ajamil,
True.
the soul has to talk to either the Yamadutas or the Vishnudutas, depending on his actions during life. So I would assume that the soul... Now, there may be some attachment. Sometimes the soul hovers, like people's ghost stories, like the soul's like attached to what it lost in its physical material body and therefore hangs around a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I think once that's over, you deal with the Yamadutas or the Vishnudutas respectively, and they take you to your next station. Okay. So I think I would, now again, I'm not like a scholar by any means, but my understanding from, especially using the story of Ajamil as like sort of a basis, it feels like it would be kind of like a, for the time being, for that little bit of time, you're kind of more aware of the fact that you're not that body. Obviously, you're the soul. You realize, this is me.
Wow.
You're in between.
And then when
now
you get put
getting
into
told,
body,
like, hey, due to these things that you've done, you're going here next. And you're like, man, and then you go back in and you're covered again, and you forget. And so, and then you're like dealing with that. But for a minute, you get to like see, oh, these are the things I did, and then maybe some inkling of like, oh, I can't do this again. I gotta. Some amount of that might be in your subconscious when you're dreaming. Like, some of that kind of seeps back in when you're more free of the entrapments of the body. Something along those lines.
Yeah.
That's my.
That answers
my take on it.
This is why we do this.
Yep. I'll probably read the next one and then have you read the two in between that in the end. Okay, this worked.
And you stopped...
Hypnotic regressions. I'm getting into some hypnotosis.
Oh, okay.
Deep breaths, everyone. Close your eyes.
Yeah.
Hypnotic regressions do not give us the whole picture. A number of popular books on reincarnation focus on cases of hypnotic regression in which subjects allegedly recall details of a past life or past lives. The first such book to have a wide impact was The Search for Bridie Murphy, which became a bestseller in the 1950s. It was realized in more than 50 newspapers, creating something of a worldwide sensation, and became the prototype for a whole genre of past life regression books that have appeared in subsequent decades. But this literature about reincarnation only skims the surface, giving us a bantam view of a vast subject, a view that in many ways can be misleading. A bantam, kind of like, I'm assuming that's kind of like
I've never heard that word before.
Like a, I can't think of the definition. From the context, I have a general idea, but yeah, I have no idea what the definition of that word is. I don't think I've ever read that word before. A bantam view of a vast subject. So it's like a very slim, slight kind of view. Is that what it is? B-A-N-T-A-M. Ban and then tam. Bantam. I'm assuming it just means slight, like infinitesimal, like very small.
Short. Oh, bantam. Several different definitions. A noun. Also, a chicken of a small breed, the male of which is noted for its aggression. Short. A level of amateur sport typically involving children aged between 13 and 15.
A childlike junior, very, very not the whole picture, basically.
Apparently named after the province of Bantam in Java. smaller people, and I guess the chickens there are small. I don't know. Okay. So it means like small and childlike, or
Yeah. Not the
miniature.
whole thing, for sure. A miniaturized idea, understanding of the whole. So giving us a bantam view of a vast subject, a view that in many ways can be misleading. That's the word for the week.
narrow.
Yeah,
Also,
narrow.
okay.
That's what I got from the context. But
Yeah, I wasn't sure what the actual meaning of that word was.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
There he is again, pulling out them damn words that like you like. Wait, what?
Yeah. In the search for Bridie Murphy, the author Maury Bernstein, a skilled hypnotist, regressed his middle-aged American subject, Mrs. Virginia Teague, to her last incarnation. This was as a girl named Bridie Murphy, who was born in Ireland in 1798. Wow, that's quite to answer your other question, that seems like a pretty vast, if this is accurate.
If it was the
and if it's actually the most recent and not just some
consecutive
other life that she ended up reliving,
Yeah,
that's a pretty big difference between 1950 and 1798.
But when you're taken out of your body, remember how we said time, right?
Time
you're no
it's not
longer
the
in your
same
physical
thing.
body.
So
So
she
I,
could have easily
I would
skipped
think
a few
that
lives,
time,
and maybe just something he said reminded her of another life, and
Yeah.
it wasn't. It may not be a direct.
or the time that you're there speaking to the Vishnudutas and the Yamadutas,
Right, could take a lot
it
longer.
could take
than
a lot
you think.
longer or a lot shorter than you might think.
Yeah,
you
because
know.
time is not as time is relative in that sense.
That's interesting.
This was as a girl named
Bridie
under 1798, lived there all her life and died at age 65 in Belfast. Oh, and she was born in 1798, so she lived to be 65. So she lived to be mid-1800s already. Under hypnosis, Teague disclosed details of Bridie's childhood home, gave the names of parents, friends, and relatives, and reported many other particulars of her past life. The book reported that Bridie entered the spiritual world at death, only to be reborn again in America in 1923 as Virginia Teague. Investigators were able to verify some of the information Teague supplied about Bridie Murphy, but they also discovered parallels between Teague's childhood and her description of Bridie Murphy's, given under hypnosis. Research revealed, for example, that at the age of 4, Teague had lived with an aunt across the street from a woman named Bridie Murphy. As a result, the Bridie Murphy story is still vigorously debated and shrouded in controversy. It makes sense. From this and many other similar cases, we can understand that even the most detailed and descriptive past life memories may be events from the subject's childhood. Psychologists studying these cases have deliberately included induced hypnotic states in which subjects come up with plausible yet entirely fictional accounts of their former incarnations. This isn't to say that all hypnotically induced past life accounts are fabrications, but separating genuine memories from unconscious fantasies requires a great deal of effort and is often impossible.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Under hypnosis, not only can childhood memories be mistaken for past lives, but also any thought, a recollection of stories heard in childhood, books read in the past, or even purely imaginary episodes or situations can easily be mistaken for real past life experiences. Therefore, the hypnotic regression approach to reincarnation often operates on shaky ground.
That makes sense.
Another common fallacy with past life regression is the inexplicable gap between the present life and the last incarnation. There. For example, the subject who thought she was Bridie Murphy claimed to have died in 1864 in her last life, leaving a 60-year period before her next incarnation as Virginia Teague. The book indicates that during this period, the soul of Bridie Murphy lived in the, quote, spiritual world, unquote. According to the principle of reincarnation taught in the Vedas, we learn that this is quite impossible. The actual process of reincarnation is that the soul, after leaving a material body at death, enters another womb in some species of life in this or another universe, as directed by the immutable laws of karma and arranged by material nature. After death, the disembodied soul, unhindered by a physical body, is able to travel at the speed of the mind. Therefore, there is a so it's not, I guess, but again, he still deals with the Yamadutas, but it's like in our, it's so quick that you wouldn't, in our time, it's just like nothing. Okay.
Well, because they often talk in the Vedas, right?
Yeah.
How, they, in the Mahabharata, for example, they oftentimes refer to something very fast, and they'll say, "Oh, it moves at the speed of the wind." Right? That was the speed of the wind is very fast, or the speed of sound.
Yeah.
They don't really refer to the speed of light so much.
No.
But one of the terms they'll often say is like Arjuna's horses that he got, the celestial horses he was given, were able to, supposedly travel at the speed of the mind. Which, if you
Really
think about it,
fast.
the speed of the mind is even faster than the speed of light.
Yeah.
You think about the sun, and you can immediately visualize the sun in front of you. So, whereas light takes 8.5 minutes to go from here to there.
Yeah. It's very,
So
very
when
quick.
you're no longer in your physical body and your subtle body is all that's there, which is your mind, intelligence, false ego, you're able to then traverse anywhere at that speed, which is insane.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And you don't really have... Oh my God. Our whole life is meant, from what I'm gathering, once you die, whatever goes on with your subtle body is based purely off of the life you've been living in your physical body. So it's almost like, once you've died, at that point it's too late. You're now you're going.
Yeah.
Whether you're on the roller coaster and you can't stop.
Any conversation between you and Yamadutas happens so quickly that it's not a part. Like for us, even if the soul feels like it's for a long time, it's probably all of a couple of seconds max, and then it's on to the next. It's not. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And of course, some of that also happened while his body hadn't quite let go yet, too.
That's true.
In that story, I wasn't really thinking about that. Like he was kind of like saying no, and like you say, someone's in the hospital. People will like seem like they're seeing something, like they're communicating with someone who's not in the room, and people will think that like they're crazy, but like they could literally be seeing angels or whatever you want to refer to the Yamadutas as. It's like these people that their job is to come and get you and take you to the next place. Like, hey man, we got the next spot reserved for you. Let's go. You're playing.
Chop, chop! Come on! Why are you hanging around?
Let's go do this
Pull
thing.
the plug! Oh my God.
Yeah. And I know, like my mom said when I was born, that I came out and my eyes were open immediately. I wasn't even all the way out of her yet. And I was just looking around the room. She said my head wasn't even all the way out yet.
Oh my
I think
God.
it was like halfway or maybe a little more than halfway, and I was just open eyes, like looking like, where am I at? Like she said, I looked very like aware and just like looking, just like checking it out, like
Oh my God.
here we go again, man. I messed it up.
I thought it was all a dream. No.
Like, dang.
This looks familiar.
I was like, like my so at least in that moment, like some part of like, maybe a little more aware than sometimes when the kids come out just screaming and unaware of what the heck is going on.
Sure.
Some part of me was like, shoot, I screwed something up big time.
Damn it.
Great. Oh.
Oh my God.
Let's see. Where am I?
Sorry.
Here? No, you're good. The actual process.
After death, the disembodied.
Is that where I'm at?
Yeah, just read from there.
Okay. After death, the disembodied soul, unhindered by a physical body, is able to travel at the speed of the mind. Therefore, there is a negligible time lapse between leaving one body and entering another. However, only fully self-realized souls can attain the spiritual world beyond the cycle of reincarnation. This is not possible for the ordinary soul, who is conditioned by life in the material world. Every soul, however, has the potential to reach the spiritual world after undergoing the necessary spiritual practices. As Lord Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita 4.9, chapter 4, text 9, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. End quote. But the Lord further notes that the great souls alone, who are, quote, yogis in devotion, never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. End quote. That was Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, text 15.
We're definitely reading Bhagavad Gita next. There'll be a lot of good stuff in there.
The laws of karma and reincarnation are so perfectly ordered that when each material body dies, nature has already arranged, exactly according to the soul's cumulative karma, another appropriate material body into which the departed soul will enter and take birth anew. I read that a little weird, but I think it came across. Quote, whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail, end quote, without fail. So yeah, that's like, here you go, that's what you asked for, like we were talking about earlier. Wow. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, text 6.
Woo.
A self-realized soul who enters the eternal spiritual world would certainly have neither an obligation nor a desire to reappear in this temporary material world of birth, death, disease, and old age. The past life regression approach, yeah, I would think so.
I don't want to come back here.
The past life regression approach to reincarnation occasionally yields evidence of the fact that the same soul inhabits different bodies at different times, and this knowledge is helpful. Many published cases confirm past life information revealed by hypnotized subjects to be remarkably accurate. The same soul inhabits different bodies at different times. Oh, okay, I read that wrong. Different bodies at different times. For some reason in my head that was same time. And I'm like, what? Many published cases confirm past life. Yeah, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Many published cases confirm past life information revealed by hypnotized subjects to be remarkably accurate. Sometimes these hypnotic regressions elicit demonstrations of deeply felt emotions that are hard to doubt. The work of Ian Stevenson in the United States and Peter Ramster in Australia includes carefully documented reincarnation experiments, in many cases involving independent observers to ensure integrity. It is noteworthy that some of their subjects spoke fluently in languages which it had been proven they had had little or no contact with throughout their lives. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
A few even spoke in old dialects no longer extant, but which were validated through historical records. Wow, that's intense.
It's hard to argue with that.
Yeah. Some of Ramster's subjects led him and independent observers to remote dwellings in foreign countries never before visited by their subjects. In several cases, these buildings or other remains meticulously matched subjects' earlier accounts of their past life homes, accounts which were taped in Ramster's office before his subjects went abroad to begin the verification phase of the experiment. That's intense. These types of careful scientific experiments seem to lead us inevitably to the conclusion that reincarnation exists in some form. Unfortunately, they do not give us any real, in-depth knowledge of how transmigration of the soul actually takes place. Therefore, the past life regression approach to reincarnation is at best a rudimentary attempt to explain a highly complex phenomenon. Moreover, the sensationalism, oversimplification, and even hucksterism that surrounds so much of this experimentation, most of which is not scientifically conducted, severely limit the regression method as a viable information source about the innumerable intricacies of reincarnation. I like that word, hucksterism.
Yeah. Dude, I love the way he writes, man.
What a bunch of hucksterism going on in here. I guess I'll read this last little short one and then I'll let you read to the end here. So death is not a painless. Once a human, always a human? Another popular reincarnation myth posits that
I love how you just quick threw that out there and it says death is not a painless transition. I'm like,
death is not a painless. You start there. Don't worry about it. Don't think about it. Oh.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Once a human, always a human. Another popular reincarnation myth posits that the soul, once attaining a human form, always reincarnates in a human body, and never in that of a lower species. We may reincarnate as humans, but we could also come back as dogs, cats, hogs, or even lower species.
Flies on poop.
Yep, flies on poop. That's the goal, I guess. Not really. The soul, however, despite entering higher or lower bodies, remains unchanged. In any case, the type of body one gets in his next life will be determined by the type of consciousness one develops in this life and by the immutable law of karma. The Bhagavad Gita, the most authoritative source book on reincarnation, spoken by God himself, clearly states that, quote, when one dies in the mode of ignorance, he takes birth in the animal kingdom, end quote. BG, chapter 14, text 15. There is no scientific or scriptural evidence anywhere for this fanciful, quote, once a human, always a human, end quote, notion, which runs contrary to the true principles of reincarnation, principles that have been understood and followed by millions of people since time immemorial. I mean, the whole idea of the balancing of the judicial system, if you will, of like our lives here, it wouldn't work if you just always.
I mean, the Christian belief system has the same teaching. The famous, you reap what you sow. That's literally karma summed up in a couple words. You
100%.
reap what you sow. Everything that's happening to you. And here's where I think a lot of people get hung up, myself included. It's easy to know that or have that understanding up here, but to actually practice that is another level. Because to the person sitting there dying of cancer or, MS or something, or ALS, they're sitting here like, my God, how I've been good all my life. I've never, I was kind to people. I gave away in charity. I did all these pious things, and here I am suffering for it.
Yeah.
But, what's interesting actually is when you look at some of these people.
Yeah.
One of my favorite people, Peace Pilgrim. My mom used to read some of her books, and she was this lady back in like the 60s, 70s, whatever. And she, anyway, she kind of lived very austerely and went through a whole lot of stuff in her life. But she always had this positive, like, even though whatever I'm going through, it's just the will of God and blah, blah, blah. So I think where some of the misconceptions come up from is we see other people going through horrible things, and we think, oh my God, that's so horrible.
Yeah.
If I was in that situation, I would be feeling like this. But we really don't actually know what those other people are actually experiencing.
The grass is always greener,
Exactly.
So someone's experiencing this great life because from the outside they have all these nice things and stuff.
Exactly.
But you don't know that they're in $500,000 in debt and they're depressed and all this other stuff.
Michael Jackson, man, you actually hear about his, yes, he grew up and he was rich and famous and wealthy, but I was reading somewhere that one of
the bigger insecurities. Yeah, then you think people only like you because of that, or they only are with you because of that, or whatever those reasons are. There's so much that you don't know.
So therefore, whatever we're going through, if we're getting caught up in the false ego, we become bitter that, it's so unfair. Why am I going through this? Why am I having to suffer? Or why is this person having to suffer? That's so unfair. I don't believe in God anymore because if there was a God, he wouldn't allow that to happen.
Yeah.
But when you look at it like he does big picture, God isn't the one doing it to us. We are doing it to ourselves.
Choosing this,
we're choosing to touch the stove even though it's hot.
Yep.
And we've been told that it's hot, but we want to touch it anyways. And so now we're going to get burned.
Yeah.
And it's a hard pill to swallow that I'm actually responsible for both the happiness and the distress that I'm experiencing in my life. Yeah. Because when you're happy, it's real easy to be like, yeah, man, I'm happy and successful because I worked hard for what I did. But then when you're failing and you're in misery, you don't want to. You want to blame it on other people.
Yeah. You don't want to say that it's because of what I did anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And conveniently, because we believe that, this is our one life, I've been good all my life. But even then, I mean, in the story of Jadbara, right? He wasn't walking on the ants. Ants are living things. What if, I kill ants all the time in the house. I wipe the countertop down. I kill thousands of them. Who's to say that me suffering later in life is not because I just killed a whole colony of ants for no other reason than that, they're up in my grill. We don't tend to think about other lower living entities as being living entities. We think that they're just insects, no big deal. And we don't really understand how every single one of our actions has a reaction to it.
Yeah.
So you might think that, I lived my life and I've been good and I've been donating money and I've been a great philanthropist, but can you really truly say that you've always been 100% good, even in this lifetime? No. Nobody can.
No.
What to speak of other lifetimes where you could have been like this horrible monster of a person, or
It's interesting because in the sense it's like you don't want to, because it's like a defensive nature, which I definitely was. I had a lot of that, especially as a kid, and I still have a tendency to fall into that if I'm not careful, because it's just something that's been so prevalent in my life. Like I just tend to be a little bit of a defensive person.
Me too.
And I've watered it down a lot because I used to be horrendous with it as a younger kid and then into teenage years. But it's still there a little bit. And it's interesting because by not blaming other people, by taking responsibility, for instance, like that traffic example that I gave in the last episode would be now, it would be, you're late because you're behind the truck that was towing the hay through the rural area. And you're like, God dang it, like, what's this,
Why is this asshole on the road?
In the road, he's going 15 miles an hour, I got to get to work. But you end up, you left you left your house to the point where you probably were already going to be a minute late, or you were going to be barely on time, and now there's a little bit of traffic, or you hit all the red lights instead of a couple of green lights, and you're late. And you want to blame the person that made you miss that light, or the person that was towing the hay in front of you, whatever, but they really only slowed you down maybe by 4 or 5 minutes, or even slowed you down by 10. If you have a commute that takes you by a bunch of farms, you have to have that kind of plan, and you shouldn't. But if you blame them, tomorrow, you leave at the same time.
You're right.
And when it happens,
you
blame them again.
You're not learning a lesson.
When you take the power into your own hands and go, man, if I had just left 15 minutes early to give myself a buffer, I'd be fine. And then if you're almost to work and you want to stop and grab something because actually there was no traffic, great. Or you get to work and you want to take a second to finish your podcast in the car, or you're going to make a quick phone call or whatever before work, you have that time to do whatever you need to do. But you're taking, by accepting that it's a result of your actions and your choices, you actually get more power in a sense.
Yeah.
Because now you can affect a different result the next time you're in a similar situation.
Yeah.
But when you're always, oh this, oh that, oh the economy, oh the president, oh this, oh my neighbor, oh this car in front of me, oh the lights or whatever, then you're going to have the same crap all the time. But we don't see it that way in the second. In the moment, it feels like it's an attack on us to say that it's our fault. Like, oh, this is my fault. But it's like if we just took full fault for everything, your life gets a lot simpler. You can't change anybody else. Everything is your fault. How do I do something different?
Thank you, Krishna, in Nitai's heart, for giving me the message that I needed to hear. Everything.
I need to hear too.
No, I know. And I don't mean that facetiously. I mean, like, no, you're 100% right. And it literally is the very soothing balm that I needed for when I came over here this morning. Because it really is. You're really 100% right.
Like, of course, that doesn't mean that you can control other people. But again, you're the only one you can control. Take responsibility.
Yeah, that's true. You're right.
And find a way to change your situation if it doesn't work, Find a way to communicate or do something differently or leave earlier or whatever. There's got to be a way, and the only thing you can actually affect is yourself.
Yeah.
But it's really easy to not think about things that way and to blame other people.
It's true, and that's because of the false ego. It's like a defense mechanism. Your brain always wants to protect you.
Yeah.
And therefore, it comes up with the most ingenious ways of trying to protect you from thinking, oh, it's my fault. Oh, I'm the cause of my own misery.
Yeah, but you're actually more protected by realizing it is your fault, because again, you can protect yourself better, insulate yourself better for the next time.
But it makes you uncomfortable, and so, when we read the Bhagavad Gita, we'll get more into this. Yeah. Because Arjuna hits it right on the head. That part of you that is uncontrollable, the part of your, when your daily consciousness that, ooh, I want this. Oh man, you know what would be good right now? A cup of coffee from Iliano's. Oh, you know what I want? Oh, I want to have a cigarette. Oh, you know what I want? I want to go out and buy, whatever it is. I'm going to go out, eat out. I'm going to go do this. That part of us that's your mind.
Yep.
And your mind, when you're not in control of your mind, leads to you being dominated by your senses.
Yep.
You're chasing after sex. You're chasing after food. You're chasing after comfort. You're chasing after whatever. So the real goal, like as devotees, or what we call bhakti yogis, the real goal is, if you could sum up what does it mean to be a Hare Krishna, or whatever. The goal is to control your mind.
Yeah.
How do you control your mind? You can't, and Arjuna says, controlling the mind is like trying to control the wind.
Yeah.
How can you stop a hurricane or a tornado? You can't.
No.
You can't, make the wind stop, but you can direct it. You can build a building in such a way that the wind hits it and goes around it.
Yeah.
You can, so rather than controlling the mind through brute force, and think of nothing,
Yeah.
that's impractical.
Yeah.
Instead, we have to direct our mind to think about something else, rather than think about all of the
Something that's more
all of the
productive.
coffees and all of the, I want to play
yeah.
a video game, or I want to watch a TV show, or I want to do this. If we engage it rather in something that is pertaining to, our higher impulses, like,
Yeah.
oh, let me read, something that betters me, or let me do this, or, that's really the goal. And the goal ultimately is to focus the mind on Krishna. By focusing the mind on Krishna, automatically all of the other actions we take will lead us towards that goal. So that's just control the mind. And controlling the mind is so damn hard. Every day you wake up, it's like, it's a whole new battle from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed. And you can be, really good, and all it takes is you get in the car and it's something little, like a song comes on, and next thing you know, you're sitting there and you're like, holy shit, like, I've just been, like, oh.
Yeah, hard. It doesn't take much for your mind to just go in the wrong direction.
Yeah. What to speak of living a whole entire life of doing nothing to control the mind whatsoever.
Yeah.
Or not even understanding that I'm being controlled by my mind. A lot of, how many of us end up living our whole life and, you see, whatever. I see the patients that come in and they're, 60, 70 years old, and you can just tell by looking at them they've been smoking and drinking and doing hard drugs for decades and decades and decades, and eating very poorly and those are all results of not being in control of yourself.
Yeah.
Not, not to say that ultimately it is.
Yeah.
It's a hard pill to swallow, for real.
Your mic is running, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Death is not a painless transition. Books that paint a rosy picture of death and assure man of a human birth in the next life are dangerously misleading. Yeah, no. The authors attempt to portray death as a beautiful, painless transition, an opportunity to experience growth and to progress to newer and higher dimensions of awareness and tranquility. What?
Yeah, okay. Sure. In the case of some people, but definitely not guaranteed in any way.
Most chic reincarnation theorists would have us believe that after a brief period of cosmic slumber, we will experience a warm, drifting, floating sensation as the soul slowly proceeds towards its next human body. Then, we are told, we enter a cozy human womb where, protected from cruel outside elements, we lie comfortably curled up until the time when we emerge, freeing ourselves at last from the shelter of our mother. All of this sounds wonderful, but the harsh truth, here's Prabhupada about to drop.
He's like, this is very wonderful. However.
But the harsh truth is that birth and death are odious, agonizing experiences. The great sage Kapila Muni, also one of the incarnations of Krishna. That's an interesting thing. Krishna, all of these incarnations, they all come... I was having this conversation with my dad the other day. So the different incarnations, just like we have our own moods, right?
Yeah,
sometimes you're angry, sometimes you're very compassionate, sometimes you're, super frustrated, or sometimes you're very loving or whatever.
Yeah.
So Krishna also has moods. And so the different incarnations are essentially like the ultimate concentration of different moods, right? Like Nrsingadev is the mood of, fear, like fearful anger, protecting his devotee, like, I'm gonna, destroy everything. Excuse me. And then you have Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya is like the pure embodiment of Krishna's merciful aspect. And then, but whereas Krishna, the form of Krishna, the cowherd boy, that is Krishna's purest form, his whole entire form. So all of those moods exist in the form of Krishna. Whereas the different incarnations, obviously they are Krishna also, and they contain those aspects, but they embody the different moods of Krishna.
Yeah.
And so therefore, whenever he wants to exhibit some pastime, he takes the form that best suits whatever mood he wants to come down in, which is really kind of cool.
Yeah.
The great sage Kapila Muni informs his mother about the true nature of the death experience. Quote, and this is from the Bhagavatam, "In that diseased condition, one's eyes bulge due to the pressure of air from within." And he's talking about the child being in the mother's womb. "And his glands become congested with mucus." Oh, no, I'm sorry, this is someone dying. Okay. "In that diseased conditions, one's eyes bulge due to the pressure of air from within, and his glands become congested with mucus. He has difficulty breathing, and there is a rattling sound within the throat. He dies most pathetically, in great pain and without consciousness." I can confirm that that is basically how most people die that I've seen. It's really not pretty.
Damn.
Oh God, it's not fun. Although I will say the few devotees that I've seen leave their body surrounded by kirtan, it's much more peaceful than your average hospital.
I think that's
death.
the only.
That's how I want to die, dude.
That's
I'm
the
telling you
only
right now.
people that I've seen like so
Peaceful.
like Bhakti Tirtha Swami.
Yep.
Was probably the only person
Prabhupada,
I was like there when he was like
Yeah.
we were all there for like the chanting and just kind of
Very
as he was
peaceful,
passing, yeah.
preaching up until the last breath of the that just
It's crazy.
yeah.
I mean, he couldn't even talk properly anymore, and he had to whisper it in someone's ear, and they were trying like
Yeah,
they were,
he's
like,
still preaching until the
yeah.
moment he dies. Like that's really powerful. The soul is so habituated to living in the body that it must be forced out by the laws of nature at the moment of death. Just as no one likes to be forcibly evicted from his home,
True.
the soul naturally resists eviction from the material body. Even the tiniest insect will display the most amazing abilities and techniques for avoiding death when their lives are threatened. That is the truth. But as death is inevitable for all living things, so are the fear and pain associated with it. The Vedic literature informs us that only self-realized liberated souls have the power to experience death without anxiety. Wow. This is possibly... This is possible.
Say that without anxiety aspect, like what we were just talking about, a lot of times at the end of your, people have like, oh, I wish I'd done this, all these regrets and stuff, and the fact that they are seem so peaceful, and they're still like literally about to die in the next couple
That's
of
the
minutes.
ultimate test.
They're still saying the same thing they've been saying the whole life.
That just goes to show,
this is just focus and just work on this, and he's like literally giving you advice to do what he's been doing his whole life,
Yeah.
even when he's seconds from death.
Yeah.
And that is like,
It's powerful.
oh, he didn't change his mind at the end of that. He's
Yeah.
like, no, this is
He's not
still the
faking
way.
it.
He's not faking it. He's not faking. He's not
100%
freaking out
believes
now.
that,
He's
you
not
know.
like he's like this is like.
Yeah,
that's
no,
that's
the
powerful.
videos of Prabhupada also leaving his body in Vrindavan, I mean, for
powerful.
days before he died, same thing, laying there in a bare whisper, preaching, using every breath that he had, all of his energy to try to get out, like, as many instructions as he could. Yeah, it's just, we were so fortunate to be able to meet and, grow up around Bhakti Tirtha Swami.
I know.
Yeah.
It's incredible how something like that just living next door practically.
Yeah. The Vedic literature informs us that only self-realized liberated souls have the power to experience death without anxiety. And not even just Hare Krishnas, but, I mean, look at Jesus. Look at what he went through.
Yeah.
He's literally hanging there on the cross,
And still being merciful
dying,
and kind.
and preaching to the thieves that were hung next to him, trying to tell them how they can also attain the kingdom of God. So it just
strung up.
while he's strung up, been stabbed in the side by a spear, and is basically just hung up to die. Like it's a mindset, and it carries across all religions. It carries across it's self-realized, a liberated self-realized soul. This is possible because such highly elevated personalities are completely detached from their temporary bodies, being fixed in the knowledge that they are spirit souls with an eternal, non-material existence, independent of all material bodies. Such great souls remain in a state of continuous spiritual bliss and are not bewildered by bodily pains and changes at the time of death. But taking birth in the material world is no picnic either. For months, the human fetus lies cramped within the darkness of the womb, suffering severely, scorched by the mother's gastric juices, continually jolted by sudden movements, and feeling constant pressure from being contained in the small amnion or sac which is surrounding the body in the womb. This tight constricting pocket forces the child's back to arch constantly like a bow. Further, the unborn child is tormented by hunger and thirst and is bitten again and again all over the body by hungry worms and parasites, right? Which, in the abdominal cavity. Wow. Birth is so excruciating, the Vedas say, that the process of birth eradicates any memories of one's past life. So the trauma of being...
So when you first come in there, you are...
Yeah.
Interesting.
Which actually in the Bhagavatam, like Maharaj Parikshit, who's in the womb of his mother, it's stated in there that when you're in the womb of your mother, how you were saying, like, in between lives, you kind of are realizing, like, oh my God. Actually, while you're in your mother's womb, you're also realizing this, like, oh my God, please just let me out. What have I done? But then you're born, and now you're not in that situation anymore, so now you're like, oh, yes, freedom. Oh, and you just forget all about it. Oh, it was just a bad dream. No big deal. Yeah. The Vedic literature explains that a human birth is very rare. In other words, most living beings in the material world have assumed non-human forms. This happens when the soul, giving up the purpose of human life, namely self-realization, becomes entangled in animalistic desires. It must then take its next birth in the animal or lower than animal kingdoms. Reincarnation theories described in popular literature should be seen for what they are: beliefs, opinions, suppositions, and mere speculation. The physical universe is governed by laws. I mean, gravity, time, thermodynamics, all kinds of laws. The subtle universe is governed by other laws, including the laws of karma and of transmigration of the soul. That is super interesting. So the physical universe is governed by laws like gravity, time. The subtle universe is governed by other laws, including... And the subtle universe is hard for us to quantify because it's not perceptible to the physical body.
We don't have any experience of it that we can recall.
It is under these subtle but stringent laws of nature, described in the Bhagavad Gita and hundreds of other Vedic literatures, that the actual process of reincarnation operates. These laws did not spring into existence whimsically, but function under the control of the Supreme Controller, Sri Krishna, a fact that he confirms in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 10. Quote, "This material nature is working under my direction. Under its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again." End quote. Fashionable notions about reincarnation may be amusing and appealing, but our own destinies are much too important for us to put our faith in frivolous, grossly simplified, inaccurate, and misleading speculations, no matter how attractive they may seem. The Vedic literature, on the other hand, has for thousands of years provided comprehensive and practical knowledge about the science of reincarnation. This wisdom makes it possible for intelligent persons to gradually approach higher and higher states of awareness, and at last escape completely from the endless cycle of birth and death. This is the real goal of human life.
Nice. It's the end of that chapter.
End of that chapter. How many more?
We just have one more. I think it's just 8.
Yeah.
It's the longest one.
And that one is... Oh, it's 9.
Actually, not that long.
That one's 9 pages.
Might be a little shorter than the one we just did. Yeah, so we got one more chapter in this book, and then we move on to the next book.
There's a little... read this, too.
Yeah, the little...
Just one little bit.
I started at the end. It's short enough. You could just tack that on at the end. So, thank you guys for listening. Hopefully it was valuable in some way, shape, or form. And we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.